Hello, welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. Of course, I'm Big Italy 42. He's Spencer Limbach at Spencer_JL. And we're talking about the all-day slate. Of course, there's a afternoon slate, there's a night slate, whatever slate you feel like playing. Obviously, it's morning time now, so use this information however you'd like. But a lot of options as we go through the entire slate. So we'll start off at the top here. The most expensive option is going to be Max Scherzer. Some good things going for him, some bad things going for him. Obviously, his huge strikeout rate against the Cubs, huge strikeout rate, especially against righties. He's pitching really well. He's got 10-plus strikeouts in 3 of his last 4. But he also is not one of the better pitchers in the league keeping the ball on the ground. He does struggle with fly balls. And the Cubs, especially in this ballpark, do like to mash the ball. I'm not buying into the wind like the last couple days. Everyone was freaking out about this wind. 11-run total, 10-run total. What do we see? Like 9 runs total in 2 games, if that.
Yeah.
So I'm not buying into that. I'm not concerned for that reason. But I think as far as him being the most expensive option, almost $12,000, that's not the type of environment where I want to pay $12,000 for a pitcher.
Yeah, that price point is just way too cumbersome if you're trying to get a viable cash game lineup. And there's some reasonable pitchers a little bit cheaper, as we're going to get into. One of those guys is Garrett Cole against Miami. I read this morning that Miami's like 25th against right-handers in terms of WOBA. So, I mean, pitcher-friendly park in Pittsburgh, and he's in a good line to get the win against Brad Hand, glorified spot starter. I really like Cole tonight at 10K.
Yeah, and just to further that point, Miami also has the lowest team ISO against righties in the entire league. So when you take Giancarlo Stanton out of that, obviously you assume he's going to be playing today. But either way, I mean, just consider his isolated power and then taking his away and finding out what the rest of the team is. It's borderline 0 right there. They have 0 power. Cole doesn't make many mistakes. I'm with you there, especially early slate. I'm playing him as my cash game pitcher, and there's really no question at all.
Also if we're looking into the later slate, you have Zach Greinke and Garrett Richards are 2 names that catch my eye. Garrett Richards' price point is a little higher than I expected it to be. I mean, granted, he's been pretty solid to begin the season, but I think 4 similar price points. You have Richards at 9K, Greinke at 9.9. I might go with Greinke just because he's such a heavy favorite tonight. Minus 235 is his money line. But as we've seen before with Greinke, that doesn't necessarily mean he'll get the win. He hasn't gotten the win in the past 3, which not entirely his fault because Jock Peterson decides to hit a home run in the 9th and not earlier in the game.
Pitches.
But anyway,
the guy
that's
keeping here 2 pitches.
Yeah. But I mean, you have to really like him tonight against Alex Wood to get the win at home. So he's probably my pitcher for the late slate.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, we can't do anything about the bullpen or Don Mattingly. Different argument there, but I mean, I think the guy's an idiot, so he doesn't seem to know what to do with this bullpen. Either way, I'm with you. He's a monster favorite. He's in a good spot. If you're looking for other guys, some might be playing Michael Pineda. I will not be. Not just because he got crushed by the Royals. I don't play any pitchers against the Royals. I don't care if your name's Clayton Kershaw. No thanks. Other options, Garrett Richards is interesting at 9K. More of a tournament option. A really interesting tournament option is Jeff Samardzija, who obviously everyone's going to be on Toronto. They had a big game yesterday, and they are at home. But this is a guy who's had some really great outings recently. Went 7 innings, 7 Ks against Detroit, got 16 points. Went at Oakland, 8 innings, 5 Ks. And then last time out, obviously Minnesota, so take that how you will. But 9 Ks and 8 innings. So he's pitching deep into games. He's getting strikeouts. He's doing it against good offenses. So obviously, Toronto much better against lefties than righties, so I think he's a really interesting GPP where it's going to be really low owned today at under 9K.
Yeah, and he's finally turning it around, which kind of dampens my enthusiasm for some of the Toronto bats, especially at their high price point. But one more pick I kind of like for GPPs and maybe a borderline cash game option is Noah Syndergaard at home against Philadelphia. He's been good, not fantastic to begin the season, but he's in a great position to get the win, and as we know, Philadelphia, one of the worst offenses in the league. So I think he's in a good spot at 7.7K.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. I think he's in a fine spot as well. Other guys you can consider, Mike Fiers, we know has big-time strikeout upside. He does struggle with the long ball, but if the Giants' bats aren't hitting, we know he's got nice upside. Super risky at $7,500, but I don't mind going that way, like in a single tournament maybe. And outside of that, if you're looking for cheap guys, you would think Ubaldo Jimenez would be a guy due to his peripheral numbers, but you look at his swinging strike rate; it's among the lowest in the league. I'm not buying into his 9 strikeouts against Toronto or 6 strikeouts against anyone else. He's not missing any bats. So just because Houston strikes out a lot, they at least strike out swinging, and they're not going to be swinging and missing a lot against him. So you might see him in some tournaments, but he's not a guy that I'm going to be looking at.
Yeah.
All right, as we move on here to catcher, a lot of good options here. Like we said, if you're not playing Jeff Samardzija, Russell Martin back in the lineup today, $3,200. He's interesting. I know you and I both love Brian McCann. I'm sure we're not the only ones against literally the worst fly ball pitcher of all time. Keeps breaking his own record, and Chris Young. Kind of baffling people with the numbers he's putting up this year, but certainly not going to sustain that. If anyone's going to get to him in a big way, it'd be these Yankees lefty bats in this position. So I got to like that. And then you got guys like, no, I totally missed it. Alfredo Simon got scratched, I believe, right?
Really?
Yeah,
I have not seen that yet.
I think he did. I think I just saw that, and I didn't even realize it.
That changes things.
Yeah. Kyle Ryan is filling in for him now. So I wasn't going to say Stephen Vogt, but I believe that Kyle Ryan is a lefty. So never mind on Stephen Vogt against the lefty. We'll move on from that either way. Elsewhere at catcher, Miguel Montero, if you're not playing Max Scherzer, makes for an interesting tournament option. You know he's got big-time upside against righties, $2,800. Definitely going to be a nice pivot because he's going against a tough pitcher, but I don't mind looking that way in a single bullet.
Yeah, if you're looking at the evening slate, I think A.J. Ellis is an okay pump play. There really isn't anyone else. We're talking about games starting at 8 o'clock and later that I really want to slide in there. You have maybe Wilson Ramos against Leicester, but that's not exactly optimal. A.J. Ellis, 2.3K, will likely be in the lineup against lefty Alex Wood. Don't really hate that. Otherwise, another punt play, if you're looking for in the early games, Brian Pena, minimum salary against Kyle Kendrick. I didn't see where he's hitting tonight. Oh, he's not in the lineup. Never mind. It's Barnhart is actually batting 7th, so never mind on the Pena call.
Yeah, lots of guys changing around all these things with these early start times, I guess here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so I guess that just builds up the rationale to go with McCann and just, move on to the next position. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, for me it's easy. It's going to be McCann in tournaments and GPPs. That's how it was a couple days ago, last time he faced a really bad pitcher, and he was really popular, but he panned out pretty well, so I'm with you there. It's going to be Brian McCann for me. Moving on to first base, got some interesting options. Miguel Cabrera gets a lefty. It's Scott Kazmir. It's a good lefty, but I think he's a great tournament option at $5,100. I love Prince Fielder, and I would love to get him in my lineup. I don't care who he's facing. The guy is step aside Bryce Harper because he is the hottest hitter on the planet right now. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I don't need to tell you the numbers. It's stupid. 3 hits at least, or 3 hits in 4 straight games. 5 homers in his last 5. I'm telling you the numbers anyway because they're so good. Get yourself some Prince Fielder in tournaments. I mean, he's absolutely locked in. If it's not going to be him, I think you and I are in agreement on the early slate for cash games. It's either going to be Jose Abreu against Marco Estrada at the Rogers Center or Joey Votto against Kyle Kendrick at Great American. Both those guys in great spots against bad pitchers. Both guys $3,200. Really hard to come off them in your cash games for early or even all-day slates.
Yeah, for me, it's Jose Abreu, 3.2K against a fly ball pitcher like Estrada in the Rogers Center. His salary actually went down like $300, $400.
No response.
Yeah, even though he's homered in 2 of the last 3. So, I mean, you don't like it that he's relying on that power, but, I mean, he has that upside against Estrada, fly ball pitcher tonight. In my projection system, he's actually the top first baseman. So, I mean, if you get him at a discount at 3.2K, I mean, you got to love it.
Yeah, and he's going to be a really popular play in cash games as well. So, if for nothing else, get Jose Abreu in there. Block everyone else from getting the home run he's going to hit off Marco Estrada in his one of his first couple at-bats here today. Elsewhere at first base, not a whole lot that I love. You've got some tournament options. Ben Paulson, you could play in some tournaments at $2,800 if you want a cheap guy, but really only $400 less than those other guys. Not a strategy I'm going to be going at a lot, but also that'll keep his ownership down. You can look at Chris Davis against Colin McHugh, who's struggled a lot recently, but I don't love him. And then I'm not going to go any cheaper than that. I was looking for a guy, just a really cheap option. I guess you could consider Adam Lind at $2,500 against Ryan Vogelsong, but that's going to be it.
Yeah, that's a very roll of the dice play too with Adam Lynn because he just hasn't been hitting much of anything lately.
Yep.
I think he has one RBI in his past 10 games or something like that. But two sneaky GPP, I don't know how sneaky they are, but I think they're going to have a low ownership percentage just because Abreu and Votto are sitting down there at 3.2K. You have these two guys at 3.5K, Mark Teixeira and Lucas Duda. I like both of them for respective reasons. I might side with Teixeira with a better park factor against a fly ball pitcher for the same reason we like McCann. And he's going to have a lower ownership percentage, as we said. Lucas Duda against O'Sullivan. O'Sullivan just gives up power to lefties. He has even though it's a small sample size, like 22, 25 innings pitched, he's given up a 4.13 WOBA to left-handed bats. So, I mean, you have to like Duda tonight. Or today, I should say. He's playing the afternoon game, so keep an eye on those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. Big time upside with those guys. As we look at second base, you and I were talking before the show. You want Jason Kipnis. Really tough to pay $4,700 for him against Colby Lewis. So maybe find yourself some other lefty exposure to Mr. Colby Lewis. But great tournament option, of course. Brian Dozier is hot right now, $4,000. You're looking at him. I prefer him against a lefty, of course. Ben Zobrist. Now, it looks like he's facing Alfredo Simon, a righty, but he's not. He's actually getting a lefty, so I actually kind of like him at $3,100. I think he makes for a nice play. Jimmy Paredes as well at $3,000. The guy just kind of does it all. Had a double, 3 hits, stolen base last night. So I think he makes for a good play. And then if you're going cheap, you got Skip Schumacher. It's $2,200 min salary for the early slates. And I think that's the punt that I'm going to be going with probably in most of my cash games because he is leading off today against Kyle Kendrick.
Yeah, that's not a bad position at all. And a couple more from the early slate that I like. Dustin Pedroia against Phil Hughes. The Red Sox are actually one of the higher projected scoring teams at 4.76 runs in this early slate. So you have to like Pedroia for just some steady, consistent production in cash games. Otherwise, Daniel Murphy batting cleanup against O'Sullivan. 2.8K. As we said, O'Sullivan versus lefties has just been, a fantasy goldmine earlier this season. So I think I might be leaning towards Daniel Murphy in my cash games for the early lineups.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. That's a good call. Get target weaknesses wherever you can. Absolutely.
One more guy. Should mention for the later slate, Colton Wong, 3.3K. I think targeting St. Louis bats for this late slate. Granted, there's only 4 games, so there's not much really to pick from, but targeting St. Louis lefties today against Cole Mentor would not be a bad strategy at all, and Colton Wong sitting there at second base. I think that's a pretty safe pick.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. Nice call there. As we move on next to third base, Josh Donaldson had the game of his life last night. Now gets a kind of tough matchup against the Shark tonight. He's going to play for tournaments. I think I'm going to be going Todd Frazier. Ton of power against righties. Great ballpark. $3,800. He's going to be my pick of choice. I like Matt Carpenter as well, but I'm not going to pay more for him with less power than some of these other guys behind him. Nolan Arenado's a really good tournament play, just $3,200. Yes, Mike Leake's tougher against righties, but he's been pretty bad against both recently, so I don't mind targeting him either. Who else are you looking at here at third base?
I'm with you on the Todd Frazier call for the most part. That's who I'm going to have in majority of my lineups in this early slate. Otherwise, if you want a little bit of salary cap relief, looking at Alex Rodriguez, as we said, Chris Young, fly ball pitcher. And Rodriguez has multiple hits in his last 2 games at least. So, he's hitting the ball well. And then we have Josh Harrison against lefty Brad Hand. Don't mind that either, 3.1K. So I think the Pirates make for a sneaky tournament stack in the early slate. They're going to be overshadowed a little bit. So Josh Harrison, kind of like that call too. And we should mention Lonnie Chisenhall as well, minimum salary going up against Colby Lewis. I know he hasn't really done much of anything, but you got minimum salary, you have multiple hit upside. If you're looking for a punt, I think he's the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely not going to argue that. I like that. I'm a big fan of Lonnie Chisenhall. I won't say rightfully so, but I do like him a lot.
One of these days, we're going to see a Chisenhall jersey in that corner, right behind your shoulder there.
I do have some Chisenhall rookie cards. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh
I
my
went and
god!
searched those out because I had some strange love for Lonnie Chisenhall.
Bring him on for the next show. I need to see this.
When he gets into the Hall of Fame, those are gonna be worth at least $6 a piece. So start your bidding at $5.99. As we move on to shortstop here, I love Jose Reyes here at $3,000. He can do it all. Finally back, looks healthy, double in each of his games so far. So I think if you're going to pay up, that's the way I'll be paying. If not, there are some cheaper options I don't mind. Freddie Galvis has a tougher matchup, but he's been getting it done. $2,800. I don't mind him batting second. Then a couple of cheaper guys as you scroll down here. Wilmer Flores, $2,400. Hitting the ball really well. Gets Sean O'Sullivan. Obviously righty, not a lefty, but he's got power too. 7 homers on the season. And then one other guy that you had mentioned that I'm certainly considering for cash games as well there, and even GPPs, is Alexi Ramirez at 2.3. He's batting fifth. Rogers center, Marco Estrada. Same factors as everyone else, but almost min salary.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Reyes call. That's what I have for a majority of my cash games in this early set. Yep, Flores, Alexi Ramirez are the pump plays. Otherwise, you have Jung Ho Kang in the righty-lefty matchup against Brad Hand. As we said before, I think some of the Pirates bats are going to fall under the radar. Don't love the price point at 2.9K, but he should have a good lineup position, should be a consistent producer, so don't mind that. Otherwise, for a tournament pick, we have Brandon Crawford, as we said earlier with Mike Fears. Is that how you say it, Fears?
I think it's Fires.
Damn it.
Either way. Doesn't matter. Fears sounds better. I mean, if you're a pitcher, wouldn't you rather your name's Fears than Fires? I don't want to be feared. More than fired.
Yeah, he throws fire.
Yeah, there you go.
He's to be feared. I don't know. So anyway, we have Brandon Crawford. He hits down in the order. I think his ownership percentage is usually down because of that. But as we've seen, he just hits. And, I mean, he has home run upside in Miller Park. So don't hate that as a tournament call at 2.9K.
Yeah, absolutely with you there. As we move on here to the outfield, here's your daily reminder. Bryce Harper, $5,900. Really, really expensive today. And he's got John Lester, lefty-lefty matchup. I'm not sure there's a matchup that he can't exploit, but this isn't one that I'm going to find out about. So if you want to play him in your tournaments, go ahead and pay $6K. Not for me today. Mike Trout gets Andrew Kashner. Solid righty, but, Mike Trout's starting to get it going. And unfortunately, he doesn't get points for great slides into third base, or else he'd be the highest scorer every night. But as you look at other options, I think Michael Brantley's the one I'm going to be paying up for. $4,500. Gets one of the worst pitchers against lefties in the entire league, in the world, maybe in the history of the game. Colby Lewis, $4,500. Brantley can kind of do it all. I think Brantley, if I'm not paying for him, it's going to be for Andrew McCutcheon at $4,400 against the awful Brad Hand.
Yeah, and do you have any Colby Lewis cards to go with your Lonnie Chisenhall Hall of Fame?
Let me check my fireplace. I might have some in my fireplace somewhere, and
wow.
I'll ship you a box of ashes. If I find a Colby Lewis card, I will burn it for you and take a picture.
Okay, all right, thanks. I need video of that. But yeah, you're right. Michael Brantley is the guy you're paying up for if you want to shell out that much money. If you have the luxury of shelling out that much money, if you decide to construct your lineup that way. Otherwise, some cheaper guys I'm looking at. We have Brett Gardner, 3.6K, for all the same reasons we said with McCann and Teixeira earlier. Platoon advantage, fly ball pitcher, Yankee Stadium, short porch right field, you know the drill, etc., etc. Hunter Pence, 3K. I still think he's really underpriced and a fine cash game play at that. So we don't know which version of Mike Fires we see tonight. So, but Hunter Pence, he's just hitting like a madman. He is. So he's he's rounding back into form following that injury. So I don't mind him there. Otherwise, if you're looking at the cheaper plays, you have Adam Eaton, Michael Kadire, and David Murphy all in the same price range. We got 2.5K and 2.4K. Of those three, it's kind of a toss-up, in my opinion. You kind of like David Murphy hitting cleanup against the fireplace, Colby Lewis. That should be his new nickname.
I like that.
Yeah, instead of the gas can, he's the fireplace.
That's awesome.
So you got to like him batting cleanup, but he doesn't have a whole lot of upside. So I think for that reason, I'm looking towards Michael Kadire, who could give you the same 2 or 3.4, but has upside of hitting a home run, maybe a couple doubles. against Sean O'Sullivan in a nice lineup spot. So I might be leaning towards Kadire there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. We're actually considering that for cash games as well, looking to try to figure out what we're going to do. And I think Kadire's got to be the way to go there. But I don't blame you if you go Murphy. He's in a fine spot as well. And with that, that's going to wrap things up for us. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe and check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.